Hey, my name is Sappy and today I'll be talking about Stellar Blade. It's a AAA title that came out earlier this year in April from a company that I never really heard about, and they're called Shift Up. They're a newer company, but now I can trust them with any future titles that they may have. So yeah, I'll be talking about the whole game, so there will be major spoilers. I'll be talking about the story, the gameplay, the controversy behind the game, what the community liked, what the community didn't like, and if it was just a good game or not, so let's get into all of it. If you see my Suicide Squad video, then I try to break games down into 3 parts. Gameplay, the fun factor, and the story. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the little bit of controversy behind this game. A majority of the stigma comes from our main character Eve and how she was designed to look attractive. But from the trailers, I knew this game was going to be so much more than just that. And they really live up to it, but that's just the main theme of the controversy, is that the characters in the game are made to be over-sexualized. And I don't like to be ignorant. It is true because some of them are. Let's take Rael for example. She's very busty and she doesn't necessarily need to be. But on the other hand, you see a lot of men in media too that have 8-packs that are super built or over sexualized. Just look how fangirls talk about Gojo. But at the same time, look at how men are talking about Eve. And I think it's safe to say that even if these characters weren't in the game, that the game still would have done good. You can't deny something that's good even if it has some things you don't like. But I'm personally glad it is the way it is. But moving on to the next bit of controversy. People were upset that the bunny outfit wasn't in the game upon release. And off of that strength, a lot of people wanted a refund. It's obvious a very specific kind of people got mad at this. A day after release, a patch came out that allowed the bunny suit to be in the game. And I think it's really cool that the developers listen to the community, but at the same time, this reason is just not really it. But anyways, let's shift into the core of what we're talking about here, and let's start with the gameplay. So Stellar Blade follows the Souls-like gameplay, where you have sites that you can rest at that respawn all the enemies in the area, and a place where you can upgrade and heal, and also fast travel. Regardless of them following this genre, this game is very much eye candy and very unique to itself, and it's super fluid. Your combos are beautiful. There's always amazing animations with particles flying everywhere, lightning flying from your blades. It's really cool. This is one of those games where you can't just button mash, and I won't classify it as a beat 'em up like Spider-Man is. You definitely have to parry at the right times, block at the right times, dodge at the right times, and use your attacks accordingly because bosses don't let you spam. And the combat is really satisfying, especially when you get a bunch of parries off. The skill tree is awesome because it doesn't have small modifiers that'll upgrade you by 0.5%. It'll add a new move to your roster that'll improve your gameplay. You mainly just use her sword, which is her hairpiece, and that serves as your main attacks. After the first area, Lily gives you a gun, and that gun has a bunch of different shell types and ammo types that you can use, and it's pretty cool. And I can appreciate that they give us a different way other than swinging and parrying to engage in combat. There's some tedious areas where you're forced to use it, but it wasn't that bad. Maybe to remind us that we had it. There's something called beta skills that all do something different, whether it be breaking a shield, staggering a boss, or wiping out all the enemies in the area, and they look really cool as well. A little bit later, you get something called burst skills that are even flashier and do a lot more damage. They're satisfying to pull off, and just look at this. They really spent their time making it flashy, satisfying, and just feel great overall. Also, you have gadgets that you can use that you can place on the battlefield or throw at your enemy's feet to really give you an edge in battle, or to help stagger an enemy. Just another way to engage in combat. Another thing that you can use is the Taki mode, and this is honestly really cool. A giant wing pops out of Eve, and then she gets a super cool moveset where she's unrelenting, amazing music plays, and it's just great. This is a small drawback, but when you died, there was no penalty for it. I know this isn't the Dark Souls games, but when you died with your souls and you went to retrieve them and died again, you would lose all of that progression that you worked for. In this game, you can just easily retry, and that's not the worst thing because I think it's a forgiving invitation to people who want to get into Souls games. There's about 7 worlds in total that you can go to, and they're all pretty fleshed out and they look really good. Except for one in my opinion. It's not too bad, but it definitely feels a bit empty. A little bit too empty. There's a lot more open space than there is things to do and places to go. There's no faster way to get around other than running, so there was just too much sand that you had to walk over. Another great thing about this game is the environment and the music that accompanies that environment wherever you're at. Each world and each area in that world has a different soundtrack, and every time you have an encounter in that area, there will be a specific soundtrack for it. When you're in safe spaces like Zion, the super soothing melodies play, and it's great and very unique as you just traverse the town. When you get into combat, the soundtrack will switch switch into a more elevated and upbeat version of the one you were already listening to. When you go underwater, it'll muffle. And lastly, every time you activate a camp, there's a select few number of songs that play that are just really soothing. They're meant to be melancholic and meant to feel like you're in a safe place, and they really do nail it. But I personally feel like Enya's song after you complete her side quest is the best. And don't worry, I'm not playing the whole thing. Everybody loves a good OST, and this is definitely one of them. There's over 100 songs on the soundtrack, and I can tell they took their time. They really do good with the enemies. They're all annoying in their own way, and if you don't take them seriously, you'll get cooked. Like for example, these things in the Great Desert. They were so annoying, but they really add to the game. There's cans that you could find all around the map, and when you find them, a nice animation plays and a cheerful sound plays, and it's just really satisfying. Always nice when you find one. There's a plethora of side missions, and if you don't do them, then you miss out on like the entire game. A majority of the areas aren't explored unless they're for side missions, or unless you want to. And a cool little detail, Eve can deny some requests, like somebody will ask her to commit a crime, and she can just refuse it.
Overclocking the brain? That sounds intense, to say the least.
One thing I didn't like about the side missions is how repetitive they were. Like, they all had the same ending. A lot of them required you to just find somebody or go somewhere and look for somebody or remains of them, but every single time, they would be dead every single time. There's no good ending to these side missions. If you had to find somebody, 90% of the time you'll find them dead. Even Kai's storyline, you find her sister dead, but she's fully modeled, but still dead. There's even a side mission where you go to find the cat, and even the cat is dead. As a cat lover, this sucks, but I don't think this is laziness. Maybe this is just world building. Maybe they're trying to convey that the world we live in isn't all sunshines and rainbows, and the world really is dead. Or maybe they were lazy. And lastly, when it comes to gameplay, the last thing that's really in here is fishing. Now, I don't really care for fishing, but this fishing kind of grew on me because they do it pretty well. It doesn't really belong in a game like this, but it's a nice getaway. There's a catalog of different fish that you can catch, and there's not really a reward, it's just kind of just a side thing to do. All of the worlds are filled with loot and open area puzzles for you to solve. It adds detail to the open world around you. It makes it pretty fun to explore. So yeah, we're closing up on the gameplay, and to pretty much rate this overall, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. It is so much fun, it is super flashy and very satisfying. And I don't like to compare, but another PlayStation title like God of War was very intricate in the combat in the world, and how you solve the puzzles and the overall combat. And this was very good, but it doesn't reach that level, but still unique and great nonetheless. So now we're moving on to the story portion of the video. And this story was not bad at all, but I just felt like there were some things missing that could have made it really great. But other than that, it had a great story with an amazing plot twist. It starts with Eve and a bunch of other soldiers getting sent from a ship and being dropped down to Earth. Their mission is to fight the Naytibas that are there and pretty much exterminate them all. Eve's pod hits another pod, and then it causes her to have a crash landing, and then she gets stuck inside of the pod. Then a girl named Taki comes to rescue us. And then we finally get to play. You get out and there's just war happening all around you, and you're fighting Naytibas, making your way up to the top of the hill. As you're going, everybody around you is just getting slaughtered, and I thought that was kind of whack. Like, there was hundreds of them that were dropped, and you're kind of telling me that only Eve and Taki survived. I get that we're the main character, but I kind of wish that there was more people in the airborne squad that we could have met other than Eve, Taki, and Raven, but we'll talk about them more later. While you guys are fighting, a ship crashes and then wipes out the rest of everybody else. And then Eve and Taki have to fight a strong Naytiba, and then they take it out. After that, an even stronger one shows up and goes for Eve, but then Taki takes the blow, and then she pretty much dies right there. Then, out of nowhere, it cuts to black, and the next thing you know, we're on a ship landing on a planet that has been deserted. We're also with somebody named Adam, and we don't know where he came from. Our mission there is to look for an Alpha Naytiba so that we can get revenge for Taki, pretty much. And we're also mainly searching the area for somebody who sent out a rescue signal not too long ago. As we traverse the area, we learn that Adam saved us from that Alpha Naytiba earlier, and he picked us up and got us out of there. And then they decided to work together to hunt down some Naytibas. We're also there looking for hypercells that'll also help us find the location of other Naytibas and rebuild Zion. We traverse through, run through a few bosses, and then we finally make it to the Alpha Naytiba at the end of the level. After we defeat that Alpha Naytiba that's like a gorilla-ish hybrid, we finally meet Lily. a sweet little engineer who becomes our companion. She becomes a part of the crew, and then they travel to Zion for the first time. Zion is kind of like your hub world. It's where you can do the most things and customize the most on your character, and it serves as a home for the people left on Earth. It houses a man named Oracle, and he's a mysterious guy that kind of just showed up in Zion and became their leader, helping them out. Everybody there respects him, and he's going to help us find the rest of the Alpha Nativas, but he just needs Alpha cores from them to find the other ones. And he also has a big secret that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Once you talk to him, he tells you how there's like 5 other Alpha Nativas out there, and you need to find them all before you can fight the last one, which is the Elder Nativa. I thought that was a little cliche for a video game, but nothing too bad with it. Just the usual find a certain number of bosses and then you can fight the final boss kind of deal. This is where we're fully opened up to the free roam aspect of the game. We can finally move to a new area and pick up a bunch of side missions. But pretty much our motivation from here on out is to get alpha cores and to get hypercells to repair Zion. And the overall objective is to take out the Elder Nativa. Eve is constantly haunted by the memory of Taki dying just the day before, and this is going to come up again really soon. So now we're off to the Great Wasteland, and we have to look for Atlas Lavar, a place that has another hypercell that can rebuild Zion. And we're also there to find some Alpha Nativas so that we can give the core to Oracle. So we just do that, we find Atlas Lavar, and before we do that, we have to fight Rael before we go inside. She does this to test Eve's strength, and it's a pretty good challenge, and it doesn't really make sense because Eve is on a time crunch, and they're on the same side. So after that, we make it into Atlas Lavar, and in this area you're not allowed to use your sword at all, and you just have to shoot. I think the developers did this to make sure that we remember that we have a gun. We come to a boss at the end that we can only shoot called Maelstrom, and it's really easy, and after you beat it you get a hypercell. After that you also find something called a legacy, and it had recordings of a previous Airborne Squad member, and they left something behind for another Airborne Squad member to find. So Eve plays it. So stick with me here. In this world there's androids, and then there's humans who don't exist anymore, and then there's Nativas. There's a war everybody knows called the Final War, but Raven describes that there was a secret war before that, where humans fought against something they created called Andro Eidos. Apparently the humans lost and all of them died, but something changed the tide of that war. Nativas, the main enemy that you fight in the game, apparently spawned out of nowhere and started fighting the Andro Eidos and took over the planet. Eve, Lily, and Adam are all pretty weirded out that they've never heard about this, but they return to Zion. So they put the hypercell in, and then after that they're able to talk to Oracle again to get the location of the next Nativa. Tells us that he's sensing one in Matrix 11, so we make our way there. So yeah, that's exactly what we do. We go to Matrix 11, and I'm gonna take this moment to say that this game really has a lot of cool moments. Probably like almost every 20 or 25 minutes there's some cool cutscene or quick time event happening, and it just makes the game a whole lot better. I really like action, so maybe this just scratches an itch for me, but this game just looks good all the way around. So yeah, we traverse through and fight a couple bosses, and as we're doing so, Eve gets like a little disturbance in her head. She realizes that she's hearing something from the Airborne Squad channel, and that it's coming from where the Alpha Nativa is at. So we make our way there. Once we get there, we find out that it's Taki. It turns out that Taki is alive, and she ended up getting captured, and she got corrupted in some way to become a Nativa, and she is the Alpha that we have to fight. Eve is pretty distraught by this, but she carries through with her mission. This game doesn't hit too hard when it comes to this. It's a little bit dramatic, but it's still good. It still works. While we were there, we found another legacy, but we hold on to it for a minute. After this, we go back to Oracle and just start asking him questions about the Nativa that took Taki in the beginning of the game. He says he can't find her yet, and they're gonna need more hypercells to do so, so Eve starts looking for more. But before we go back out, Eve plays that legacy that she found in Matrix 11. It's Raven again, and this time she tells us that Mother Spirit, the person that they worship, listen to, and were created by, is that she's just an AI that was created by a human that went rogue. Kinda like Ultron, and she got way too powerful. Raven also tells us that she ended up wiping out the rest of mankind, and everybody is under the impression that Mother Spirit is fighting for mankind, but she killed all of them. Eve, Adam, and Lily don't really accept this, but they want to get more information on this before they make any actions. But the goal is all still the same, to find more hypercells, to find more Alpha Nativas. So we do just that. Oracle told us that there's another hypercell at a place called Abyss Lavar. So when we get there, we have to fight Rael again, but it's not actually her, it's her twin called Gael. And she's there to test her worth, and we just beat her again. So we go in, and same thing as earlier, we can't use our sword in here, so we have to use only our gun. So we traverse through and make it all the way to the end, and we fight a reskinned boss. Well, not even a reskin, it's the same boss that we fought last time, but this time we kill it a lot quicker. So yeah, that was a little whack, but after this we find another hypercell, and we find another legacy as well to play. So we play it. It's Raven again, and she tells us that Mother Spear has wiped out everybody on the planet, and because of her, the android Eidos is now in control of the Earth, and they declared themselves the new human race. Apparently there were a few humans left that were surviving, and they were trying to make a way to come back in the war. They hid underground where they experimented with genetic engineering and rapid evolution, and then this is what caused the birth of Naytibas. Humans turned themselves into Naytibas to be able to fight the android Eidos. Eve and Lily are pretty distraught by this because they're under the influence that Naytibas are evil and that they took over Earth, and Mother Spirit tasked them to get rid of them all. But Eve and Lily feel remorse because they're humans that they've been killing this whole time, and a little bit confused because regardless of this information, they're still aware that Naytibas are still the enemy, and they think that they're the real humans, but they put two and two together and realize that they're not the real humans. They were created by Mother Spirit to fight the Naytibas, and Naytibas were the real humans.
No, we're humans. Humans with complete bodies, perfectly in harmony with machinery and living tissue. Naytibas, on the other hand, are incomplete because they are made only of living tissue.
What if we were created to solve such imperfections?
What?
So to confirm some suspicions, they go and talk to Oracle just to find some more answers and see if any of this is true, and he pretty much just confirms that everything is true. Mother Spear and they were created by humans, and humans evolved into Naytibas, and they're pretty much fighting their ancestors. But like I said, this doesn't change the fact that they still need to fight Naytibas. So yeah, Oracle tells them the next location of the next Naytiba, and he tells them that it's all the way in space. And this entire segment is really cool, probably the best part of the game in my opinion. So yeah, we have to make our way to a place called Orbit 11, which is pretty much a gigantic elevator that takes us all the way to space. Before we go there, we get one of those messages where it tells you that you should do everything before you continue with this mission because we're approaching the end of the game. I hate seeing this message because it lets me know the game is going to end soon, but it happens. And it also lets you know you got to complete everything. So before we get into that, I want to talk about the three main side storylines that you have to do. Well, you don't have to do them, they're optional, but I think they're very lackluster and they could have used more. But the one that was the best was the Enya and Sue storyline. There's Enya and Sue, there's the Kaya storyline, and then there's the Digger storyline. With Kaya's storyline, we don't know if her sister is alive or not, but you retrieve some things for her and then go to her sister's last location and find her dead, and that's the end of her storyline. For Digger's storyline, you just find him trapped under some rubble and then you free him. After that, he turns into a shop that you can buy some pretty rare things from him. He asks you to collect data from different regions, and after you do that, he decides to move to Zion, and that's the end of his storyline. For Enya and Sue's story, you find out that Enya doesn't have a body, and Sue just wants to see her whole again. Eve wants to help, so she agrees to go find parts for Enya. After she does that, she comes back and Lily is able to repair Enya about halfway, but she's not fully repaired yet. Later on, Sue goes missing and then Enya is worried about him, so she tasks you with going to find him. When you find him kinda half alive, and he has Enya's legs, and he nearly risked his life to get her that. Once you return, you're able to put her legs on, and it's pretty much like a happy ending from here. But after this, she wants to know more about where she came from because Enya has been troubled. So you go to this old opera house and you find out that Enya in her past life was a singer. And then she's at peace with herself or whatever and sings a nice song, and that's the end of their storyline. But yeah, when it comes to the side missions, those are the ones that are the most detailed and have trophies behind them. But yeah, I just felt like it needed more. I genuinely felt like we didn't do for any of these. And the only one that really mattered was Enya and Sue's. But anyways, now this part could have been different for you, but there's this small bar in the top right corner as you play that has Lily's face on it. And if you fill that bar up to 100%, you're going to be able to access this secret level called Eidos 9. But if you don't fill that bar up, you're not going to be able to go to this level at all. So before you go to Orbit 11, Lily mentions how she has something really important that she needs to do in Eidos 9. So yeah, we traverse through and make it to the place that Lily was talking about. And this is the first place in the game that you see is really teeming with positive life. But Lily wanted to come here so that she can get the memory stick of an old comrade that she used to fight with. She wanted to make sure that she pretty much rested in peace and that her memories lived on. So after we do that, we make our way to the Orbit 11 elevator. As we're on the way there, Adam gets a distress signal back from Zion. He's really adamant on turning back around, but Eve and Lily want to pursue with the mission, so Adam decides to take a bike by himself and take it all the way back to Zion, while Eve and Lily continue with the mission. So really quickly, this game does a really good job with scale. They really do make you feel tiny. Like right before you go to Orbit 11, when you're standing outside of the place, it's just huge in comparison to you. There's this part where you have to jump on the outside of the elevator, and wow, they really did a good job with this. You really feel the scope of the Earth and how big it is. So anyways, we go to Orbit 11, traverse our way through, and we fight probably the best bosses in the game. These ones are really cool. They're probably the most destructive, bombastic, and flashy, but Eve cuts through all of them, and as we're climbing up, we're faced with challenges and obstacles and the whole thing falling apart. But there's some points where you get to watch the elevator just take you up. But once we get to the top, we find the Alpha Naytiba, and we fight it. But after you're done fighting it, Eve realizes that the Alpha Core isn't inside of this Naytiba. But the one Oracle told us about is in space, so where is the Alpha Core? So it flings us around and then throws us the window, and this is the coolest part to me in this game. As you're flying around in space, Eve looks around and sees a giant Naytiba and realizes that that's the actual Alpha Naytiba. She asks Lily to transform the drone into a giant railgun and then put all of her energy into the railgun to take it out. After that, she shoots the giant Naytiba and kills it. But Eve loses all energy and starts hurtling towards Earth. But Lily had a drone in hand that flew up to catch Eve and bring her back down to Earth safely. The whole time we were in space, we were trying to get in contact with Adam just to see what was happening in Zion, but there's been no answer since he left. So when Eve gets back down to Lily, they recuperate and then make their way for Zion. Once they get back to Zion, they find that it's on fire and everything is just in utter chaos. They land, and then Eve makes her way to the presence chamber where Oracle is at to hopefully find Adam and save Oracle. Once she gets there, she finds everybody dead. Once she gets in the presence chamber, she finds out the Alpha Naytiba that was attacking is the same Alpha Naytiba that killed Taki in the beginning of the game. This is also one of the only Naytibas that can talk in the game, so Eve is taken back by that. She's also a little angry at this specific Naytiba, so she whoops its ass. So after we defeat it, it starts deforming and then shedding its skin pretty much, and then we realize that the person inside the Alpha Naytiba was Raven, the same person that we saw in the legacies throughout the game. She acknowledges that she's been exposed and then flees the scene.
Seems as though I've been exposed.
I have a little gripe though. If she was able to do this and we were able to whoop her ass and she was able to live and get away, why wasn't Taki able to live and get away after we defeated her? But hey, the game needs a plot, right? After that, we run to the very end of the presence chamber and we find Oracle, but something's very off. You can see everything coming out of him. He's not human exactly, and he's a Naytiba. In fact, he's an Alpha Naytiba. When we were in space, we weren't able to get the Alpha Core from that Naytiba that we killed. So Oracle dying serves as that Alpha Core for us now to find the nest and the Elder Naytiba. So from that, we're able to get the Master Core and we can find the nest with that. So Eve and Lily set forth to go find that nest. When we get there, Lily knows that there's a fight ahead, so she comes suited with a mech. Outside of the entrance to the nest, Raven is there waiting for Eve. So we know now that she's working with the Elder Naytiba, but she reveals to us that she's jealous. Apparently the Elder Naytiba chose Eve to restore humankind, but Eve doesn't really know what she's talking about yet. Raven was supposed to be that person that restores humankind, but the Elder chose Eve instead. So out of spite, Raven raided Zion and killed everybody that she could. She doesn't agree that Eve should be that person and doesn't know why the Elder Naytiba chose her, but she wants to kill her, so you guys fight. And this is a really tough fight. I was stuck for a day and a half, or maybe it's just a skill issue. So we beat her ass, but Eve doesn't really kill her. She just leaves her in this disabled state where she's not able to move, and according to the game wiki, she's neither dead or alive, then she's just trapped. She's mad at Eve for not killing her, but Eve just walks away and makes her way to the nest. Before we fought her, we found another legacy that was her final legacy. Raven fully denounces her and pretty much admits that she's fully turning against her. She's angered at the fact that she felt like a pawn on a chessboard. Eve and Lily don't want to accept this, and they just can't accept this, and it leaves them speechless. But still, they continue towards the nest to find the Elder Naytiba. Once we get in the nest, we find out that it's a lot more beautiful than they thought. It's teeming with life, it's very radiant, and doesn't look like somewhere where Naytibas would come from. Before you get to the end, there's a camp there, but I think it's pretty cool how they canonically explain why the camp is there. Apparently Raven put it there before she met the Elder Naytiba, so I think that's kinda cool. So yeah, yeah, we make it to the end of the nest, and I don't know if I'm just stupid or what, but I really didn't see this coming, and I thought this was really good. So when you get to the end, you find out that Adam was the Elder Naytiba this entire time. There was a part in the beginning of the game where he was about to tell Eve that he was the Elder Naytiba, but Lily interrupted when they found her.
The truth is...
Hello?
He explains everything to Eve, and we also find something else out, is that he's also Raphael Marx, the creator of the Andra Eidos, the creator of Mother Spear, and the creator of the Naytibas. He's pretty much a god in this world, so he's pretty peaceful. He doesn't want to fight, but Eve and Lily are pretty dumbfounded because a lot of bad things happen because of him. But at the same time, we learned a lot of things about Mother Spear as well. That's kind of worse than what Adam has going on. So Adam wants you to join him so that you can restore humankind and defeat Mother Spear. So Shift Up gave the players a choice, and I think this is great. So we're gonna start from the worst to the best ending. If you choose to not take his hand, he still doesn't even really want to fight you, but you kind of force him into it. The developers kind of make you feel bad for it, and I think that was the goal, and they kind of achieved it. After that, he poofs Lily's mech out of existence, and then he transforms into his true form, I guess. And the entire scenery changes, and then now we have to fight the Elder Naytiba. And this is a really hard boss fight, and it was really cool. But yeah, we beat his ass, and then afterwards, he tells you how he hopes that you're doing the right thing, and he dies. After that, you and Lily leave the nest, and then Mother Spear comes down and talks to both you and Lily. She pretty much says how she's proud of them both and what they accomplished, and says that it's time to return to the colony or return home. So Eve and Lily get on board a ship and they go home. But what we've learned about Mother Spear throughout the game, if you chose this ending, then you realize that when you get to space, Earth is covered by some protective ring that seems to be created by Mother Spear, and then everything just fades to black. We learned that Mother Spear killed all the humans, and she has some twisted intention behind her. So if you choose to ultimately follow her orders, this is all we get. It's very cryptic, and it doesn't seem like a good ending, and I don't think it's a good ending at all. The second ending is you choosing to take his hand. The two of you end up fusing, and then you guys become one, but Eve is still Eve, but she's something greater now. Suddenly, the mech that Lily's in starts to lose control, and it traps Lily inside. The mech was hacked by Mother Spear, and is the whole reason that Eve is fighting it now. Halfway through the fight, the mech knocks Lily out, and forces Eve to fight even more. Eve does this cool-ass combo on the mech, but unfortunately kills Lily in the process. But she had no other choice. Eve is super angered by this, and you can see it all in her face and her voice.
Mother Sphere, you've been watching everything from the beginning.
She takes Lily outside, and then she's approached by Mother Spear, and Mother Spear tries to congratulate her, but in this ending, Eve is very rebellious, and she just doesn't like Mother Spear anymore, and Lily requested that she doesn't be sent to Mother Spear in her death. Because of her being rebellious, Mother Spear calls down a bunch of ships, and then a bunch of drop pods and a bunch of airborne squad members come out. You take control of Eve one final time as you're just fighting and whooping all of these airborne squad members' ass. As you're fighting them though, the screen shifts to black, and then that's the end of the game and the credits roll. This ending makes Raven's story just a lot sadder, because in reality she was on our side and didn't like Mother Spear either, but her jealousy got the best of her. And if she didn't let that happen, well, her and Raven could have worked together. Before this ends, Eve makes her hate towards Mother Spear known. The last ending is known as the secret ending, and to get this you have to fill Lily's bar up all the way and also take his hand. But if her bar's not filled up, then you get the previous ending. So pretty much a lot of the same stuff happens, but this time the only difference is Lily's able to break out of the mech because of the code that we found in Eidos 9. So she breaks out, Eve defeats it, and then they come outside, and then they're still approached by Mother Spear. Mother Spear congratulates them again, and says that the Eve protocol is over. But Eve and Lily are still very dumbfounded and don't really like Mother Spear right now. So because of this, Mother Spear calls in all her ships and all of her airborne squad members and has them attack Eve and Lily, but the same thing happens, you fight them, and then everything fades to black. This time we get a post-credit scene where Eve is standing in the middle of all the dead airborne squad members, and she looks to the horizon. We're back in Zion, and Lily is putting in the last hypercell, and Zion is up to full power, and it ends on a good note with Eve flying into the screen all nice. So that wraps up the story part, and I kind of take back what I said about it being lackluster. This story is really good. The fact that it can end in 3 different ways depending on what you do is great. I know a lot of games have that, but this one hits a little different. I think it is really interesting how usually the enemies that we fight in the game aren't the good guys, but in this game, the bad guy at the end of the game actually was pretty much the good guy. We learned throughout the game that Mother Spear isn't a nice person and that she killed humanity and she's kind of crazy. So if you pay attention to those details, you can actually choose the right choice. Adam literally tells you that he's fighting for humankind and he used to be a human himself, and that all he wants is just to see humankind live. in peace. But we know that Mother Spirit has disturbed that peace many times before. So it's a little weird for us, but he's actually speaking facts. And I think no matter what ending you get, it sets itself up for a sequel, and I would love to see a sequel with this game. If this is PlayStation's next franchise that they want to pay attention to, by all means, please go ahead. The video is not over just yet, but I really want to know what you think in the comments. Did you think this was good? Did you think this was bad? Did you think the story was bad, lackluster? Kind of have a reformed opinion on it, and I think it's really good, and the fact that it sets itself up for more is great, but please let me know in the comments. The gameplay is extraordinary, and like I said, it doesn't reach God of War level of gameplay and combat, but it's super flashy, it feels so good, it feels so smooth, so it makes this really, really fun. The constant explosive moments and all the beautiful gameplay and all the scenery and all the beautiful animation just makes this game so great, at least in my book. When it comes to things I don't like, they're very few, and I mentioned a majority of them already. For one, I really don't like Adam's voice. Like, he just sounds awkward all the time, and I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's weird.
It's not unusual for Naytibas to find themselves at odds with humans.
The Great Desert was way too open and empty, and I'm not too sure if that was intentional or not, but just felt like too much. When you make a New Game Plus, you lose your first save file completely, and it's just a New Game Plus file from there on out. And it does tell you that, but I wish it was a little bit more in your face. I didn't know that I was going to lose all of that. And I'm actually really astounded that these are the only complaints I have. The game didn't glitch for me at all. There was a couple, but they didn't get on my nerves, and they were funny. This is what happens when you release a game that's finished. And I wish the side missions just weren't so grim, that you didn't find everybody dead, and that the other main side missions just had more to them. But when it comes to complaints, then that's really all I have. From what I've seen, it looks like this game did really well in all areas. It has a nice fan base, and sets itself up for a sequel. Obviously, a lot of people pay attention to the fact that the main character is very attractive, but anybody that makes it weird just does too much in my opinion. But that goes for everybody. I feel like everybody can enjoy this game, but you have to choose what you pay attention to, and how you display it. So an overall rating in its entirety, I would give it a 9 out of 10. That's just my own personal score. I'm not going by any guide or anything, but I feel like the story, the gameplay, the music, all lay the foundation for this to be a solid 9 out of 10 in my book. But I really want to know how you feel. Did you like this story? Did you not like it? Did you like the gameplay? Did you not like the gameplay? Are you a part of the people that hate this game for the main character, or are you one of the people that are fully indulging in it, and why? I want to know everything. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like. I spent a little bit of time on it, but if you don't, it's alright. But just let me know if you agree, disagree, and thank you for watching.